Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight, Wednesday evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you for watching. Our top story. A consultant says he'll regret his reluctance to report baby killer Lucy Letby in spite of his concerns for the rest of his life. Paediatrician Dr Ravi Jayaram told the inquiry into Letby's crimes keeps him awake at night. Also tonight, why are rubbish recycling rates in Liverpool the second worst in the whole country? We'll meet the award-winning Bolton barber, making haircuts less stressful for children who struggle to cope. Hitting the heights, the youngster who's aiming for the top at the World Roofing Championships.
I mean, anyone can do anything fast, but if it's rough and doesn't look tidy and neat, then it's not going to win any prizes, is it?
And a change is on the way at long last, but not until the weekend. So join me later in the programme to find out what's in store for our weather in the next couple of days.
First, we begin tonight with the teenager who's accused of carrying out the mass stabbings in Southport in July, who appeared in court again today. Axel Rudakabana from Banks in Lancashire appeared by video link from Belmarsh Prison, where he's being held on remand. Our Merseyside reporter was at Liverpool Crown Court for the hearing. He joins us now live from there. So, Andy, tell us more about what happened today.
Well, Roger, this was what's called a plea and trial preparation hearing, though in the event Axel Rudakabana did not enter pleas to any of the charges he faces. The families of some of his alleged victims were in court for this hearing. The court clerk asked him to confirm his name, but as in previous court appearances, Mr Rudakabana declined to say anything at all. He's charged with 3 murders. He's accused of murdering 9-year-old Alyssa Guiar, 6-year-old BB King and 7-year-old Elsie Dodd Stankham at that Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport at the end of July. He also faces 10 attempted murder charges. 8 of his alleged victims are children aged between 7 and 13. For legal reasons, we can't name them. He's also accused of attempting to murder a yoga teacher, Leanne Lucas, and a local man, Jonathan Hayes. Now, he's also accused of possessing a knife. All these charges relating to alleged events at Southport were today legally joined with 2 newer charges that he faced at the end of October. They are that he allegedly produced the poison ricin, and that also he had a document which might be useful to somebody committing or preparing an act of terrorism. So all those charges joined together so they can be dealt with in one trial. There's going to be another hearing here on the 12th of December when all those 16 charges will be formally put to Mr Rudakabana. A trial date of the 20th of January has been set as well, a trial which could last between 4 and 6 weeks. Roger.
Andy Gill. Now, a man who spent 35 years in prison for beating a woman to death in Wirral has had his case referred back to the Court of Appeal. Diane Sindel was killed in Bebington on her way home from work in 1986. Peter Sullivan was convicted of her murder the following year, but the Criminal Cases Review Commission says that new DNA evidence has been found. A former Greater Manchester police officer has been jailed for 9 years for sexually assaulting a child while on duty. 35-year-old Dean Dempster from Manchester has been ordered to sign the sex offenders register for life. He admitted assaulting the child while responding to a domestic incident in Oldham and was sacked by GMP earlier this year.
We are all completely shocked. We're very angry. He does not represent the thousands and thousands of officers who day in, day out, go out to protect children.
2 people have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man was found dead at a hotel in Blackpool on Sunday. The body of 59-year-old Kevin Price was found at the Garfield Hotel where he lived. A 50-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman are in custody. Police in Lancashire say that a number of shops have been breaking the law by selling knives to under-18s. They sent youngsters into stores to try to buy knives, with 7 shops in Fylde and 5 in Preston given warnings. Now, a hospital consultant who raised suspicions about Lucy Letby today told the public inquiry that he should have been braver and spoken out sooner. Dr. Ravi Jayaram said that he was worried that he wouldn't be believed and might be accused of bullying. The Thirlwell inquiry, as you know, is looking at how the neonatal nurse was able to murder 7 babies and try to kill 7 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital between June 2015 and July 2016. Our health correspondent, Jill Dummigan, is live at the inquiry tonight. And Jill, first of all, the doctor began by apologising to all the families affected here.
He did, yes. He said he would take personal responsibility for things that he could have done better. And he also apologised for systemic failings, which may have meant that her actions could have been picked up sooner. Now, at the time, he was the clinical lead for Children's Services, and he described a slow-growing suspicion of Letby among the consultants with each collapse and death. But he also pointed out the psychological difficulty of starting to think the unthinkable, that a colleague was deliberately harming babies. Nevertheless, by February 2016, he was sufficiently uneasy to walk unannounced into a room where she was looking after baby Kay. He found the baby deteriorating, her breathing tube had been dislodged and Letby apparently doing nothing. He said it had been asked many times afterwards why he hadn't, shortly after, picked up the phone and called the police.
I will take this with me to my grave. Why didn't I? There's a fear because it's such an seemingly outlandish an unlikely thing that someone is causing deliberate harm. You said to me, why didn't you just stand up and tell everyone what you thought had happened? It's the fear of not being believed, it's the fear of ridicule, it's the fear of accusations of bullying.
He stressed he hadn't actually seen Letby harming baby Kay. He said if he had, the decision to speak would have been a no-brainer, but because he hadn't, it was circumstantial, and so he felt that he couldn't raise it. He said he would take the memory of that night to his grave.
We also heard, Jill, from Dr. Jayaram that he said that when he and other consultants did raise concerns at the hospital, they were met with considerable resistance.
Yes, we've heard before that the consultants as a group were asked to write a letter of apology to Letby in early 2017. Dr. Jayaram had been told that she may be able to report him to the General Medical Council for helping to get her removed from the neonatal unit the previous July. They were told she was coming back, that the trust was drawing a line under it, and that if the consultants didn't do the same, there would be consequences. What actually happened, of course, was that in May 2017, the police investigation began. Now, he said that after the trial, he was contacted by many people within and outside the NHS who told him how they'd suffered as whistleblowers. He added staff needed to work in a culture where they felt they were going to be listened to if they raised what might seem outlandish concerns without fear or detriment. The inquiry continues tomorrow.
Jill, thank you very much. Jill Dummigan there reporting for us from Liverpool Town Hall. Now, a grieving husband says that the use of physician associates in the NHS is cheap labour. That after his wife died because of a mistake made at the Royal Oldham Hospital. An inquest found that neglect contributed to the death of 77-year-old Susan Pollitt when an associate left a drain in her stomach for 21 hours. The Health Secretary has now paused plans to increase the number of PAs, as they're called, medics who are trained for only 2 years and are used to help doctors and GPs. This report from Ruth Clegg.
Susan, that's Kate's mum and Roy's wife, died in hospital in July last year.
She was just the best mum, really. She just lived for us. It lived for us all, really.
And that's your mum. She's probably about 18 there.
She had been treated by a physician associate, or PA for short. They are healthcare professionals with 2 years of medical training who work across the NHS.
I've always said we don't blame the PA. Yes, he made mistakes, but would he have made those mistakes had he been supervised?
The PA left a drain in Susan's abdomen, 15 hours longer than it should have been. The 77-year-old developed an infection and died 2 days later.
I think they were being used basically as cheap labour in that situation.
So you thought that the physician's associate was a doctor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. You don't think about going into a hospital and saying, can I have your name, please? What's your qualification? You just presume that they're going to get looked after.
The coroner at Susan's inquest said she had died due to an unnecessary procedure contributed to by neglect, and said that without proper oversight nationally, patients were at risk. The General Medical Council, which is due to oversee their role from next month, says regulation will improve patient safety. Even though physician associates make up just a small proportion of the NHS workforce, the debate around them has become increasingly toxic.
Where an associate's job begins and ends and where a doctor's job begins and ends has become very, very blurred. How are these people coming in who have done less than we have, less training, less exams, less everything, and doing the same job?
But are patients being put at risk?
We think they are. We think that having patients treated by people with less experience must have an impact.
The Pollits aren't looking to blame one person or even one hospital. They want national change. The Health Secretary said plans to increase PA numbers were currently on hold.
Before we put the foot down on the accelerator to expand the number of roles, I think we firstly need to take stock on where we are, dive deeply into some of the challenges that are being put to us by the medical profession about the deployment of these roles, because I need to assure myself, in order to assure the country, that we've got the right people in the right place doing the right thing.
The NHS Trust, which oversees Royal Oldham Hospital, said it was deeply sorry and that they owed it to Mrs Pollitt and her family to make things safer for patients in the future. Ruth Clegg, BBC North West Tonight.
Now, if you were listening at the start of the programme, you may have heard me wondering about the printer paper. You'll be pleased to know we have replenished the stocks. These have got scripts on, just in case. Something else, maybe, that we're not particularly proud of that, and we've created a bit of extra rubbish to recycle. Not a statistic that Liverpool is particularly proud of, rubbish, in fact. The City Council is the second worst in the country for recycling. It has less than 18% of household waste recycled, so the staff who collect it, the ones who clean the streets and the ones who maintain the city's parks, will now be directly employed by the council so that it can create services tailored for each community. Lindsay Prosser's got more on it.
These bins are about to be emptied. Liverpool is second worst in the country for recycling household waste. Densely populated areas with high numbers of rented homes have the lowest recycling rates. But in this community, people say they are making an effort.
Do you recycle?
Try to.
What does try to mean?
Well, it's hard when you're in a uni house and you've only got one bin, so it fills up very quickly between 7 girls.
Do you recycle?
Try to, yeah.
So what does try to mean?
Oh, like splitting up the rubbish and, you know, putting the plastic and the cardboards in the bin. And we've got like big community bins where you put all the recycling in, so it makes it a bit easier.
Liverpool City Council is now directly employing staff who collect household waste, clean streets and maintain parks, so it can deliver services which suit each community.
Now, in areas like this, there is traditionally a low recycling rate. But across the city, you need to improve.
Absolutely.
Is it a culture of not recycling?
I think in all cities have challenges around that. Obviously in leafier suburban places it's easier for people to do that where they've got more storage space for waste, as you can see here how densely occupied everything is and how, you know, there's so many bins in the streets and so on. So it is difficult to have that storage space. But we certainly need to improve that absolutely across the city.
The government is setting councils tough targets. By 2035, 65% of household waste must be recycled.
It's a really difficult problem because it's about personal agency.
I think just like give more advertisement, like educate people that it's good for the environment.
So if you had this on your street, you may think to yourself, well, what is the point in recycling and looking after the neighbourhood?
Well, I don't know where this has come from, but you're absolutely right. It's about enforcement. This is highways enforcement, but environmental enforcement, highways enforcement, all these things absolutely have to be focused on if we're going to back up what we're saying about changing people's behaviour. We're asking everybody to really play their part. Everybody has to make an effort here for the sake of our local environment, for our clean and green city, but also for the sake of the global environment.
As the council aims to increase recycling, it also wants to encourage people to look after their communities. Lindsay Prosser, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Now, an MP is going to meet bosses at Northern Rail following reports that 2 passengers fainted on a commuter train from Glossop because it was so overcrowded. High Peaks MP John Pearce says that he was contacted by constituents who passed out on a train to Manchester last week. 13 post offices in the North West are among more than 100 put at risk under major restructuring plans, which could mean the loss of up to 1,000 jobs nationwide. The list includes 7 in Greater Manchester, 2 each in Liverpool and Cumbria and 1 in Lancashire. You can see the full list of all the locations on the BBC website, bbc.co.uk/news. The latest survey of wallabies living on the Isle of Man has found that there are likely to be about 1,000 of them in the wild. The numbers have grown steadily since several escaped from a wildlife park in the 1960s. The data, which was collected via drones and using thermal imaging, will be used to assess the impact on the local environment and to help with population management. Now, getting your children a haircut can be, should be maybe, a pretty straightforward mission for parents, despite the potential for a temper tantrum or an outright refusal to sit still. I've experienced a few of those in the past. But if your child is neurodivergent, it poses a whole raft of issues. However, one barber from Bolton is now winning awards and customers from far and wide for the way that he deals with it, as Isabel Fry has been finding out.
A haircut might seem like a small part of everyday life to most, but for those who are neurodivergent, it can be a stressful activity. 3-year-old Elijah is non-verbal and in the process of being diagnosed with autism. His mum, Rebecca, used to cut his hair herself to avoid the stress of going to a barber's.
Let's see your lovely haircut.
Then she found Craig on social media. She now travels over an hour from Liverpool to see him.
It's such like an everyday thing for most people, whereas for us it'd be such like a build-up or something we dread so much that it's literally just worth the journey to come to Craig because he's so settled. To see your child like in a meltdown or unsettled through one of these appointments, you'd rather do the travel.
How the cut goes varies with each client.
Where are we going?
He'll use different tactics depending on how the child is reacting, which can lead to an adventure around the shop.
A lot of it started from my son because he struggles with SPD, which is sensory processing disorder, and he struggles massively with getting his hair cut. And he's taught me like certain skills, what to do in certain situations. I just take all the pressure out of it. So if they want to sit on the floor, they can sit on the floor. If they want to sit out on like, the sofa or they want to go and sit outside, we'll go and sit outside. Well, I'll do what they want to do. It's all led by them, it's not led by me. And it's predicting what they're going to do as well.
Craig has created a reputation for himself in the North West, with clients travelling from as far as Carlisle to come to the safe space.
Do you know what? It's so hard because as a mum, you shouldn't really think about what other people think of your child, but you do. So consciously, if I was to take him to, say, an atypical barber's, people look at you and you shouldn't really care, but you do. So coming somewhere like this, that it is for this community and like you feel so accepted, you feel so seen, you want to bring them here.
He's won multiple awards for his innovative style of working, and that's only motivating him to work harder.
It's nothing out of the ordinary, it's just being adapting to your customers' needs, like you do in any service industry. And I just love it. I absolutely love it. It's just rewarding and it's nice. And just when you see families cry afterwards because I've actually cut the son's hair or the daughter's hair, and they're just in floods of tears, it's like, I can't believe it, someone's actually cut his hair.
Isabel Fry, BBC North West Tonight, Bolton.
Now, 2 more sleeps before the big day. Pudsey will be resting up, not the real one, obviously, ahead of the busiest day of the year. Lots of you will be generously helping to raise money for children in need, and it helps young people right across the North West, including a night shelter for young people with nowhere to go, which has helped hundreds of children to get their lives back on track. It's called Night Safe. It's in Blackburn, and Phil Chapman's been to find out more.
Adam spent Christmas here at Night Safe as a teenager a couple of years ago when family circumstances left him without a permanent place to call home. With the help of Children in Need and other donations to support Night Safe, he's since been referred to a housing project and learned to become more independent.
If it wasn't for this place, I'd be out on the streets or even worse, and things could have happened to me that I wouldn't have wanted to happen, which thanks to this place, it's helped me a lot. I joined in 2022, just before Christmas, a week before Christmas, and I stayed for Christmas and New Year. That's the most critical time because it's so cold, and the fact of people struggle being alone on Christmas.
And the work done by NightSafe isn't just confined to the shelter. The staff and volunteers take residents to a nearby country park for therapeutic outdoor activity sessions.
Adam's been with us for 2 years nearly. He stayed in the night shelter and I looked after him then. He's now in one of our housing projects, but he also comes down to the day centre to let us know how he's going on and to partake in things like this. We've talked a little bit about depression whilst we've been out amongst nature and how much better we're all feeling just for being there.
And on his last visit, Adam signed a wall dedicated to the names of just some of the young people who've been helped by NightSafe and Children in Need.
That was Phil Chapman reporting. To show your support for children in need, you can donate any amount online at bbc.co.uk/Pudsey, or you can scan the QR code, as if anyone's holding their phone and is quick enough to jump up off the sofa to scan it. But if you are, you can. There it is, bbc.co.uk/Pudsey. We're going to talk about a chap called Joe now. Most of the time he can be found up a ladder, on scaffolding and then on roofs across Greater Manchester and Cheshire. He is an apprentice roofer in the family's business. He's used to scenes like this. But this week, for 1 week only, Joe's going to be representing the UK on the world stage in competitive roofing. It is such a thing. And it's a serious business, as Phil McCann has found out.
A house in Wilmslow needs a new roof. Another day, another job for Joe, an apprentice roofer at the family firm in Altrincham, which he'll one day take over.
What I like about being a roofer is you're outside in the fresh air. What I don't like is when it's raining and it's cold.
OK, young roofers, we start! But this is what starts tomorrow. Nothing normal about this. This was the World Championship of Young Roofers 2 years ago. Then it was in Switzerland. This year, it's Austria.
You just have a rig, which is a sort of miniature version of a roof, split up in 3 sections. Each day is each section, 3 sections, 3 days.
So you have one rig, and then the other teams have one, and then it's all in a massive hall?
Exactly.
Joe isn't new to competitive roofing. He's already represented Bolton College, where he's doing his apprenticeship in an inter-college competition.
It's teaching you to be fast, but to a certain standard as well. Do you know what I mean? Anyone can do anything fast, but if it's rough and doesn't look tidy and neat, then it's not going to win any prizes, is it?
And the National Federation of Roofing Contractors was watching. They scouted him.
People from the NFRC spotted us there and they said, would you like to come and compete in their own competition for the international competition, the best 2 of which would go and represent the UK.
And since then, Joe has been going down to Hereford, to the UK's Centre of Roofing Excellence, with his teammate from Essex, here in the hat. His name is Tyler. They've spent 3 weeks preparing.
When I'm not here, the business does suffer, but that suffering is worth it because of what I'm being able to do and the opportunity that I've been given.
This game's getting difficult to get young lads. And if we're putting them through college like we try and do, and they progress, then he's a bit of a beacon for other lads to follow.
But there's been an extra challenge in training for Joe and Tyler. At the competition, they'll have to do Austrian roofing. As you can see, different tiles and different styles.
The amount of insulation, counterbatten tiling, felting, vapour control layers, it's a lot to get in a 8-hour period. I've learned there's a lot more that goes into Austrian roofing than UK roofing.
Joe's in Austria all this week, and next week he'll be back on a roof somewhere. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight, Wilmslow.
Oh, good luck to Joe. I might need him to come and have a look at my roof, actually. Have you heard of an aptonym? It's a name appropriate to the job that you do. Joe's friend, colleague, Tyler from Essex. The reporter, of course, was Phil McCann, who was famous when he went out to report on the petrol crisis and stood in a petrol station, Phil McCann. And Abby, we have a weather presenter here, don't we? Sarah Blizzard.
Yeah.
She says Blizzard, does she?
Well, I feel like she has to try and get away from it, but Sarah
Blizzard.
I mean, that's brilliant.
Great name for a weather forecaster.
So good. I know. Yeah. I try and wangle that. I say Dewhurst is in morning dew.
Dew?
Yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah, so that's as good as it gets, I'm afraid. Speaking of morning dew, there was probably quite a bit of that on about this morning, wasn't it? It was a beautiful start to the day. Thank you to Keith for sending this photo in from Harwood. And then we did see some sunshine sort of scattered about, but there has been quite a lot of cloud again today. Out and about in Ormskirk, sent this photo in from this afternoon. If you do take a weather photo and you'd like to send it in to us here at North West Tonight, all the details on the screen behind me very shortly. You can send it in to me directly on social media, on X, formerly Twitter, on Instagram, or you can sign up to become one of our BBC Weather Watchers, and those photos come straight into us here at the Weather Centre. So our weather over the next couple of days is looking very similar, very settled. It'll be mostly dry. We'll see variable amounts of cloud. That will allow for a little bit of brightness and some sunshine. It won't be quite as gloomy as it was during the first week of November. But we do have quite a big weather change on the way. High pressure sinking its way south, a squeeze on the isobars on Friday. That will mean strengthening winds, so a little bit breezier through Friday and the weekend, and a cold front. That will move through over the weekend, bringing outbreaks of light rain and introducing much colder air into next week. But looking at things overnight tonight, it's mostly dry. We will just see 1 or 2 light showers. I think a fair amount of cloud, but some clearer spells as well, with our temperatures dropping back to around about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius at the lowest under those clearer skies. But I think generally speaking, as we start the day in 1 or 2 places where we've seen a little bit more cloud, it won't be too chilly. So it looks as though tomorrow we'll get off to a dry start. The best of the brightness will probably be in the morning. We'll see a little more cloud gradually building up as we head through the course of the day, but our temperatures are pretty average for the time of year. I think they'll get up to about 9 or 10 degrees Celsius for tomorrow, perhaps a little bit milder than that over on the Isle of Man, where we could see 13 degrees. But big change on the way. We've been looking at those very mild yellows and oranges for the last couple of weeks, but we are moving into that much cooler air mass as we head towards the end of the week and the weekend. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of frost, some ice, and the risk of some snow next week.
Really?
Rog. I know.
Really?
The newspapers will be going wild.
Yeah, oh gosh. And how certain are you of that?
Don't quote me, but there is certainly a chance.
Oh my gosh, a little flurry.
Little flurry.
On higher ground,
yes,
as you say. Well, thank you very much, Abby. That's it, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.